This is going to be different than other interviews you've done because this is not about policy. It's not about the state of the world. It's about you and how you became who you are today. And we're going to tell the story.
About life.
It's about life.
Wow. Okay.
Told, let's go in here, told through objects that you've kept over the years. And let's start with childhood. So tell me what this is. I'm intrigued.
These are taken from a tree that my father planted in our backyard.
How old were you?
I was about 5 or 6. I went to the garden. My father was a professor, and he's digging this thing around, this sapling.
Right.
And I said, my father, what are you doing? He says, come and help me. Here, dig and dug. He said, take some water, water it. Okay. Take some fertilizer, fertilizer. Done. A year later, I go to the garden, and my father's doing the same thing. I said, Father, what are you doing? He said, same thing. He said, but you did that last year. He said, yeah, but you see, the tree got bigger. And today, these trees are gigantic. So that's the story of Israel. You know, you have to water the tree, you have to dig it, you have to make sure it gets enough sunshine, and you have to give it enough fertilizer. But the tree grows against all odds.
Your dad. Tell me about him.
He got you into the habit of understanding how to think, how to read, how to appreciate breadth of knowledge.
He was very opinionated, especially about Israel. Were you conscious of that when you were a kid?
Well, I was conscious of his opinions, but not politically. We never spoke politics at home.
Really?
Yeah.
When you look back, what is the best quality that you think you got from your dad?
The ability to clarify your thoughts.
Here's my message to the rulers of Iran. Your plan to destroy Israel will fail.
I have not read a lot about your mom. What about her? How'd she influence you?
How not? I mean, she was the pivot of the family. She kept the whole thing together. She used to say, I'm married to a genius, which she was, but even a genius needs somebody to take care of his socks. She raised us, 3 sons, and at the same time took care of my father.
Israel celebrates its 7th Independence Day, and streets of Tel Aviv echo to cheers for the armed forces of the proud young nation.
When you were growing up, I would think that you were scared a lot.
I had a wonderful childhood.
So there was no fear that everything around you were people who didn't want you guys to exist?
We didn't have the faintest idea of that.
How is that?
Well, it was, first of all, it was a different world, you know.
But you're in a tiny place.
There was a confidence, a self-confidence in the newly emerged nation. And we were the generation that was born with the state of Israel. I was born 1 year after the Declaration of Independence of the state, and it was natural to me.
You are the middle child.
Yeah.
And I've done interviews now with many people who have older brothers, and it seems like the parents always targeted the older brother and said, he's the one that is going to do great things. And Yoni was an exceptional person, and what I've read is your dad especially said, this is the kid who's going to go into the military, be a hero, go into politics. Did you feel that shadow with the older brother?
Psychobabble. My father, the last thing he wanted was for Yoni to go into the military or into politics. This is a superimposition of the Kennedy family onto our family, and nothing could be further from the truth.
When you were a kid, what did you want to do? What did you want to be?
Anything. I wanted to be a soccer player. I wanted to be, a soccer playing scholar. Who knows? I mean, I didn't really think about it. I didn't have personal ambitions until much later in life.
So this looks like you in control. Seems appropriate.
Looks like my son.
Tell me about this. When was this taken?
I guess it was taken in some soccer match when I came to the United States.
How old were you? You were, what, 16, 17?
Something like that, yeah. No, but I came in at about 13 and played soccer. It was a very peculiar time, you know. I went to an American high school in the 60s.
Right.
Can you imagine?
Cheltenham High, class of 67. His yearbook picture at the bottom left. Benjamin Netanyahu, on the soccer team in the chess club, remembered as a serious student.
Well, what I can't imagine is, high school can be tough. You have this Israeli Jew who goes to an American high school on a level that must be tough.
The level in terms of scholastically? Or?
No, in terms of
I didn't know
just
English
fitting
that
in.
well.
No, in terms of fitting in.
I didn't fit in, but I actually fit in quite well with everyone. I didn't have any.
There was a language barrier.
No, I overcame that fairly quickly.
We have Israel. It's a pretty amazing and special country, and unfortunately it needs an army in order to survive. So if I want Israel to continue existing for future generations, I have to do my part to help defend it.
In America, I don't think generally there is this passion about serving your country, and I know there isn't, the way it is here. And here you are on a trajectory of success in America, and you go home and join the Israeli army. So what drove you back?
Well, I had a very strong identity, having been born here, having been raised here, knowing Jewish history. I never thought of my life as separate from the life of my people and my country. I never thought. I think they're intertwined.
This is a free country. And if I said, what is the greatest battle that we face? Of course, we live in a tough neighborhood. And we have to defend ourselves. And we have the bravest soldiers in the world to do that.
I always thought you have to have a balance between individual ambition and collective responsibility.
For the first time in 100 generations, we, the Jewish people, can defend ourselves. I can promise you one more thing. Even if Israel has to stand alone, Israel will stand.
We're completely defenseless. We couldn't protect ourselves. We couldn't complain about the things that were being done to us.
But that's in your consciousness when you're 13, so that you come
That's
back.
in my consciousness, not when I'm 13, when I'm 3.
Did you ever think about staying in the U.S.? It sounds like you didn't.
No,
You were always going to go back.
always. But I thought I'd bring back the things that I learned.
What American values did you bring back?
Initiative, meritocracy. These are strong, strong values. That the way you advance is through merit. That the society should be open to all to compete. That if you invest effort and ingenuity, you're likely to succeed. These are strong American values that have their resonance in, I think, in Jewish values.
You went to Cheltenham High School?
Yeah.
So be honest with me, who's the most famous alum? You or Reggie Jackson?
In Israel, me. In America, Reggie Jackson by, 100 yards. This is the book of letters of my brother, which we collected after his death in Entebbe.
He was an unbelievable writer. Somebody told me the way they referred to him was, they said, Yoni has all the golf clubs in the bag.
Yeah, no, he was an exceptional human being and turned out to be an unbelievable leader and a great military commander. He had indescribable courage, and there was nothing pompous about it. He never played the part. He was the genuine article, and everybody who knew him knew it. He didn't have to buy. Let's say this: he didn't have to die to be a legend. He was a legend already in his life.
You have said that when you were at MIT and he was killed in Entebbe, that you said the hardest thing that you've ever had to do in your life was tell your parents that you were the one.
Yeah, it was. That was indescribable agony. When my younger brother called me and told me that Yoni had been killed in Entebbe, which I had a premonition that he would tell me that, it was as if my world had collapsed. I just finished MIT. To my parents, my father was teaching at Cornell at the time. And I didn't want the news to reach him through the news.
There were funerals in both Israel and Uganda today. The results of Israel's weekend raid to rescue more than 100 hostages from pro-Palestinian hijackers at Entebbe Airport in Uganda. 3 hostages lost their lives, along with the commanding officer of the raiding party, but most reached Israel in safety.
So I drove for 7 hours in this horror. Then parked the car not far from my parents' home. And walked up the path that led to their house, and there was a big window in their living room, and I could see my father pacing back and forth, his hands behind his back. And all of a sudden he turned his gaze and he saw me and he had this, "Bibi, what are you doing?" And then immediately understood because he had heard about the news of the rescue. And so he understood, and there was this horrible shriek that he gave, and then I heard my mother shriek, and so it was like a second death. It was actually worse.
Well, how did his death change your view of Israel, of terrorism, just your worldview?
Well, there's no question that Yoni's death in Entebbe changed my life and steered it to its present course. Of course, I didn't know it at the time. But I felt that I had to do something about this scourge of terrorism.
Nobody wants peace more than Israel. But the stumbling block to the road for peace is this demand for a PLO state, which will mean more war, which will mean more violence in the Middle East. Israel wants to live in peace and wants to be secure. If that involves maintaining our own military guarantees against the destruction of people who surround us, yes, I believe we should fight for our survival.
And then there was also the question, well, the terrorists are, they have a good grievance. And they're acting out of, trying to correct a grievance. I said, no, they're not. Because people who deliberately murder babies or blow up buses, they don't have freedom on their minds. They'll trample their own people once they get into power, which they do invariably.
What terrorists do is target the innocent deliberately. And therefore, my definition of terrorism is the systematic and deliberate attack, the murder, maiming, and menacing of innocents, of civilians, for political goals.
If Yoni had not died, do you think you would have gone into politics?
Absolutely not.
You wouldn't have?
Nope.
So it became a calling.
The public battle against terrorism became a calling.
Your military career was incredibly distinguished, but can you describe what happened with Sabina Airlines with the hijacking?
בשעה 4:30 לאחר יממה של מתח וחרדה, הצליחו כוחות צה"ל להשתלט על המטוס, לשחרר את 90 הנוסעים ואנשי הצוות, ולהרוג ולשבות את 4 המחבלים, שניסו ללא הצלחה לסחוט שחרורם של כ100 מחבלים.
You want the true story?
Absolutely. My vision is you walk on the plane as a mechanic.
Yeah.
And you then, grab one of the terrorists, you push her against the seat, you, eventually you got shot in the middle of all of this. So I have this big vision of what you did.
Well, it's all true, except that something preceded it. See, this was a hijacking of a Sabina airplane bound for Israel, and it was captured by 4 Arab terrorists, 2 men, 2 women, okay? They got it into Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv, and they said that unless we release such and such prisoners, they're going to blow up the plane. But we had absolutely no knowledge of what you do in a situation like this. And they gave us about 5 minutes of pistol training, and then this guy taps me on the shoulder. This guy who was a security guard, and he says, well, Bibi, you gotta stop the operation. And I said, what's the problem? He said, look, I was flying in from London, and the toilets were completely occupied. And I said, the minute I get to Tel Aviv, you know, I'd go to the toilets and I landed and you grabbed me here. So I have to go. I have to go now. He says, now. And I said, big or small? He says, big. So this is all true. And so I, you know, jump off the wing, go to the commander, it was actually Ehud Barak, and I said, Ehud, we have to stop this for a second. He said, what's the problem? I said, well, this guy's name was Tzur. He has to go. He said, now. I said, now. He said, big or small? Big. And so he, you know, he jumped off the plane, got under the airplane, did whatever he needed to do, and then we go back and we resumed this thing, and then we broke into the plane. Oh. And I was shot by another one of these security guards who shot me by accident.
That was friendly fire.
Didn't feel friendly at all. That hurt like hell.
So the books you have here are Hamilton, a book on MacArthur, and a book on George Washington. This is your American period.
No, I read a lot of other books too, but I read a lot. I mean, I'm not just, you know, I read a lot.
What inspires you about, I mean, these are obviously three giants in America.
Well, I didn't know Washington that well until I started reading him, and my appreciation for him grew. There was a Veterans Day. I happened to be in the U.S., and I thought I'd go to Mount Vernon to pay a tribute to the greatest veteran of them all. And having read, you know, the biography, I saw what a great leader he was. He was armed with one thing that I've grown to appreciate in my own terms in office.
What?
Patience. Patience.
You live in a fishbowl. You have a relatively small house, a small office. Everywhere you go, you're followed by this phalanx of security.
Yeah.
I would think at a point you need to find outlets that take you out of that world.
Yeah, I do, but they don't let me.
Well, what do you do? Because you can't you've lived this way a long time. You have to have outlets.
There's a photo of me with one of my boys, little boys, and I don't know, half a dozen security guards standing with machine guns. We're sitting in the sand on the beach, and Princess Diana saw this picture and said how horrible that is. And, you know, I don't think it's horrible, but you want to be able to go out to the beach, and you want to go out to a coffee shop, right? And you want to sit in a room and, you know, open the curtains, okay? And that's occasionally what I insist on.
When you have this kind of security everywhere you go, do you worry that it disconnects you from the public?
There's no chance of that because I have two young men, my sons at home, and they, you know, they follow the internet. They tell me what young people think. They tell me what their friends think, and sometimes I wish that they wouldn't, because I'd like to, you know, I'd like to be, you know, disconnected from what is happening now in our world, in our.
Why? Why would you want that?
Because what you have is the internet has created this thing of instant referendums. So what happens is you have political leaders who are constantly bombarded, right, by polarized opinion, right? And I don't think that's a good thing. I think it's inevitable. It's there. We all work with it. We all understand it. But I like the idea of representative government. Representative government says you're elected, you're given a period to exercise that power, and then they can throw you out. The problem today for politicians is not being disconnected. The problem is they're overly connected, and they're completely at the mercy of these shifting tides of opinion that are reflected in the net. And that's not good. If you want to know how long I've been in this business, this is from my first term in office 20 years ago in the Prime Minister's house during a rare snowstorm. And that is Sarah, my wife, our little boy.
He's like 4 years old.
Yeah, something like that, barely out of diapers, and his older brother, Yair. Now, Flash forward 20 years later, same place, you see, same place.
Oh my God, you found snow again.
Yeah, Sarah, still beautiful. This old clunker, that's me. And look at that, that's the little boy here. He's now a soldier in the army. And that's his brother, Yair, who just finished university. Can you imagine? I mean, that's it.
Tell me a little bit about Sarah.
You know, she's the pillar of the family. And she says, you know, she taught me something that I didn't understand the first time I was elected. This is my 4th term. So the first time I was, you know, I was 46 years old. I had young kids, and I devoted everything to the job, nonstop, literally, you know, 24/7, 365. And, you know, then I was thrown out of office.
The Netanyahu government has been ousted.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has lost his bid for re-election to Labour Party candidate Ehud Barak by at least 14 percentage points.
Which is a very healthy thing to happen to a politician. And then I came back in and served now another 3 terms. So this time, the second time when we came into office, she said, you know, we're going to do something different. He said, we're going to give time to our children because it's never going to come back. And because ultimately that's when you come back to. And so we have Friday night dinner, you know, and then Shabbat lunch. And before that, I always read a portion of the Bible. There's one rule in these 2 weekly meals that we have. You know what it is?
No politics.
No phones. There's nothing in this. The gadgets, they're not there, you know? They're all gone. And we just talk to one another, you know? I'm afraid I can't raise my kids the way I was raised. That is no current politics discussed because they were born into it.
You know, I can relate a lot to what Baron is going through because I've been in his age in my dad's first term. And, you know.
And look how he turns out.
It only makes you stronger.
Their political understanding is nothing of the kind that I had at their age. It's much more advanced.
I'm treading on dangerous ground here because my understanding is there's not a traditional first lady of Israel, but she really has become effectively the first lady, and some people don't like the concept of that.
Well, they certainly have attacked her in order to attack me. They can't bring me down, so they, you know, they engage in just terrible attacks and unwarranted attacks on her, and she has great courage and great capacity to withstand that, raise a family. She gives everything she has to her kids. She's a Jewish mother if you ever saw one. I mean, she really, you know, she really worries about the kids and the family. And she works as a child psychologist. So every week she goes for a few days to these religious schools where she's Sarah the psychologist. They don't even know. These little kids, little girls, they don't know that she's the prime minister's wife. They have no idea.
Does it hurt you when the media is critical of her?
Yes, horribly. It hurts me a lot more when they attack her than when they attack me.
Does she want out?
Well, she certainly enjoyed the time that we were out, I have to tell you that. When I lost the first, you know, the election that ended my first term, I'll tell you what we did. We went to Disneyland. Remember, these were small kids in California.
Wait a minute, you're about to tell me what do you do when you lose the election? I'm going to Disneyland? You actually did the commercial.
I took my kids to Disneyland. They loved it. And then we went to Australia and were lost on a beach for, you know, I don't know, 2 weeks. It was no politics, no phones, different time zones. It was absolutely magnificent.
Your kids, do you encourage them to go into politics?
No.
Do you discourage them?
Yeah.
Why?
It doesn't help. I mean, it may not help, but yeah, of course, because it's a very tough life. First of all, I don't think it makes a difference of what we tell our kids. I think they'll do whatever they please.
Are either inclined?
Maybe one. I'm not sure, but I hope not.
Do you tell them that?
Yes. Yeah, I do. Of course I tell them.
But it served you well.
Why? You think I couldn't make a living outside?
You could make a living, but you've made a difference.
Yes, you make a difference, but
You pay the price.
You pay the price.
I am fascinated. Show me what you got for technology.
Oh, how about this? See that? You know what that is?
I have no idea.
This is a pill cam. It's a pill. You can swallow it right now. It'll go right through your system and give the computer out there full picture.
These images then travel from the sensors along the wires to the data recorder for later reading by a physician.
So this is like an MRI.
Yeah, except it goes out and it's not painful and you don't have to go under these machines or anything like that.
May I?
And you remember those sci-fi films of the people going in submarines inside the body? That's it. That's an Israeli invention, which is tremendous. It saves a lot of lives.
When was this developed?
A few years ago, and it works. Israel is the digital powerhouse of the world.
Where did you develop this passion for technology? I know you went to MIT, but you were studying architecture and business.
Yeah, but you know, in MIT, you take all these courses, and you see what's happening. When I was there, they were still using punch cards for computers, so you see how ancient that is. And I just understood that the world is changing very rapidly.
You said something in 1976 that just really hit me. You were talking about newspapers creating a database that would kind of revolutionize the way they're able to do their work, because they would essentially have dossiers on anybody they wanted.
How about Google? I mean, well, you skip the newspapers.
Well, but you envisioned Google. You envisioned Google in 1976.
It sounds like Al Gore, you know.
But that is kind of the end.
No, I didn't. I can't tell you. I understood that there's great change, and I understood that you have to create an environment for this creativity.
Did you ever worry about privacy back then, that if people have databases like this, that privacy would really start to wane? Or was that in your head?
Well, in a way, but not because of that, but because of my years in the military and my familiarity with the way intelligence services work. That's why if you walk into my office, you won't see a computer. You won't see a television screen. And you certainly won't see, you know, a phone. You know, one of these cellular phones. Because anyone who uses this stuff today is exposed. Now, I'm not sure everybody is interested in what I have to say if I were a private citizen, but I'm sure they're interested when I'm the Prime Minister of Israel.
What gives you the most pride in terms of technology in Israel, if there's one thing?
Cherry tomatoes. That was developed here too. I'm not sure it was invented here, but it was perfected here. So it's from cherry tomatoes to life-saving drugs to medical technology to basically, if you take your cell phone, a good chunk of it is made in Israel. A lot of the technology, a lot of the programming, a lot of the apps made in Israel. You have a Waze system?
Yes.
That's an Israeli company.
Google has completed its purchase of Waze for a little over $1 billion.
Google sees the benefit of acquiring Waze. They're going to keep them based in Israel. Ultimately, I think Google made the right choice here by acquiring Waze. It was a smart acquisition in my mind.
What is happening very rapidly is a big revolution in which Israel has the other most dynamic technology economy in the world. The first one is definitely the United States. The second, by many accounts of people who know and who have proven the great capability of investing their money, the second place is Israel. But there is a problem with this new industry. It's called cybersecurity, and the possibilities of sabotage and worse are all there. With the click of a button, you can bring down nations to their knees very rapidly.
Is technology the key to security in Israel at this point?
It's one of the keys, but the most important key is the willingness of the people to give of themselves to defend the country. And
don't they kind of merge at a point?
Yes, but I think that technology by itself doesn't do it. I think you need courage. Donald, could you sit there and just sign a guest book?
Tell me what this is.
Oh, that's our guest book. People come into the Prime Minister's residence, they sign in.
World leaders.
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of them.
Huh. They just don't sign their name. They write a note, don't they? This is the Obamas. It was a great honor to reaffirm the extraordinary bond between our two countries. May our bonds continue to grow on behalf of people and prosperity for all people. What was the visit like?
It was great. It was great.
Because you had your issues there.
Yeah, we disagreed on a few things, Iran, Palestinians, small things. But we also found areas of agreement and I think of mutual respect. And I didn't hide when I disagreed. I made it clear.
May I give you an observation?
Yeah, sure.
That you have become a master at dealing with people you disagree with, because that's your life in Israel, trying to govern a country with so many factions.
Well, it's not quite the same way, but when I feel that the interest of my country and the survival of my country is at stake, I don't hesitate to stake out a position.
Iran's rulers promised to destroy my country, murder my people. And the response from this body, the response from nearly every one of the governments represented here, has been absolutely nothing. Utter silence.
You have these four factions in this country. You've got ultra-Orthodox, you've got Orthodox, you've got traditional, you've got secular.
What four? What are you talking about? We have at least...
Well, I know you have 22.
6, 7, 8. I mean,
but those are big factions.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how you can form alliances, because what I've noticed just on the street, in taxi cabs, is there are a lot of secular Israelis, there are a lot of traditional Israelis who have a thing against the ultra-Orthodox and think they don't work, they don't pay taxes, they don't serve in the military, they have views in terms of social issues like gay rights that are out of step. So how do you form a coalition where you've got these disparate groups? How do you govern?
Well, by persuasion, primarily. We tried a positive approach, carrots as opposed to sticks, get more and more of them. Going out to the job market, crucial for reducing poverty, because we found that when both parents work, poverty rates decline, they just plummet. Orthodox women now work as much as the general population.
This is a country in which Arabs have full rights, something they've been denied in all the vast lands around us. This is a country where a woman is the chief justice of the Supreme Court, where a woman is a general, and a woman in this country can sit anywhere she wants. That's our position.
Somebody in your government told me that the smartphone may have changed the whole landscape of Israel, because people who are ultra-Orthodox, especially young people, they start reading and they develop a consciousness that they never were exposed to before.
Yeah, it's definitely changing. I didn't say, you know, I think the technology is having an effect.
I look at this book and it's filled with signatures from world leaders.
Right.
You are a tiny country and you get more attention, more media attention, I think, than any country other than the U.S. in the world. You're a tiny country.
A day of rage against Israel.
1,000 rockets have been fired.
Israel is on high alert and fighting.
Is that something you court by design?
No. Sometimes I wish we'd get less attention.
Really?
Because our story isn't always told. Our desire for peace, the fact that we've paid the price of wars, that we have lost. I've lost a brother, I've lost friends. I had, you know, one of my earliest recollections in the Army was that a fellow soldier died in my arms, you know, literally died in my arms. And that is, you know, there is no country that wants peace more than people that prays for peace more. And yet we're often portrayed in the opposite terms. And it's a rash of distortions that concern me. Not distortions about me personally. I'm not concerned with that, but with the distortions of our people who yearn for peace.
We're so proud that our small country is making such a huge contribution to the entire world. Yet the dreams of our people, those dreams will be fully realized only when there is peace.